The large window of the diplomatic chamber offered a stunning view of the blue-green planet below, but Ambassador Alan Carter paid it no attention. His focus remained on the tall, gray-skinned aliens sitting across the polished table. The Visarians, with their 4 eyes and rigid posture, had been difficult to read during the entire 3-day negotiation. Today marked the final session of peace talks, and Carter felt the weight of humanity resting on his shoulders. "We have considered your proposal," said the lead Visarian negotiator, Zoltar. "It is inadequate?" Carter maintained his diplomatic smile despite the sinking feeling in his gut. "Perhaps you could explain which points you find unacceptable?" "We've offered significant trade concessions and border adjustments." Zoltar's upper eyes narrowed while the lower pair remained fixed. "On Carter, humans fail to understand their position. We require complete withdrawal from the 7 outer colony systems and full transfer of your quantum shield technology." The room fell silent. Carter exchanged glances with his team security advisor, Frank Bennett, and communications specialist, Lily Hayes. These demands were impossible, effectively asking humanity to surrender its strongest defensive capability and abandon billions of citizens. "Those terms would leave Earth vulnerable," Carter said carefully. "Surely we can find middle ground that respects both our species' security needs." The Visarian delegation stood in perfect unison, a practiced move meant to intimidate. "There is no middle ground with primitive species," Zoltar said. "Your kind barely learned to leave your atmosphere a century ago. The grown races of the galaxy have been traveling between stars for millennia." Carter rose to his feet as well, maintaining composure. "Age does not determine wisdom, Ambassador Zoltar. Humanity offers friendship as equals, not submission." "Equals?" A sound like stones grinding together emerged from Zoltar, the Visarian version of laughter. "Your species is barely more evolved than the livestock we raise for protein. You should be grateful we offer terms at all." The Visarian delegation turned and left the chamber without formal conclusion. Protocol violation was a serious insult in galactic diplomacy. "Well," said Bennett, running a hand through his graying hair, "that went about as well as a screen door on a submarine." Carter didn't respond immediately. 20 years in diplomatic service had taught him to recognize when negotiations were a pretense. They never intended to reach an agreement. This was theater. Hayes, the youngest member of the team at 32, was already working on her tablet. "Sir, I'm picking up unusual communications traffic. The Visarian ships are exchanging coded transmissions with their home system. Can you decrypt any of it?" Carter asked. "Not directly, but the pattern matches military deployment codes we've intercepted before." Her face paled. "They're mobilizing." "Sir, so that's it," Carter said quietly. "They use these talks to buy time while positioning their forces." The diplomatic terminal chimed with an incoming message, the Galactic Council's formal response to the breakdown in negotiations. Carter read it aloud for his team. Earth delegation censured for diplomatic incompetence and cultural insensitivity. Visarian grievances recognized as legitimate. Council recommends Earth accept protectorate status under Visarian guidance. He closed the screen with a sharp tap. "They're all in on it." "The fix was in from the start," Bennett said, his voice hard. "The older races stick together." Carter gazed out at the stars. Humanity had joined the galactic community only 40 years ago, expanding quickly with colonies on 17 worlds. Their rapid growth and innovative technology had made the established powers uncomfortable. Now it seemed they'd decided to put humans back in what they considered their proper place. "Lily, use our secure quantum channel to contact Earth. The Security Council needs to know what's happening. The Visarians aren't coming to talk next time." Their ship, the UNS Diplomatic Envoy, departed the Council station 6 hours later with emergency clearance. As they accelerated toward the jump point, Hayes continued monitoring Visarian communications. "Sir," she called from her station on the bridge, "I've intercepted something you need to hear." She played the translation through the ship's speakers. "Primary fleet elements will reach human colonial boundaries within 2 standard months. Secondary elements are already in position near Earth's solar system. Resistance is expected to be minimal. Carter felt a cold anger settle in his chest. The Visarians and their allies had underestimated humanity before. During first contact, they'd assumed Earth's apparent technological backwardness meant humans would be easy to control. They'd been surprised by humanity's rapid adaptation and ingenuity. "How long until we reach Earth?" he asked the ship's pilot. 3 days at maximum speed, sir. Push the engines harder. We need to be there in 2. The journey back to Earth gave Carter time to prepare his report. The evidence was clear the Visarians had been planning this war for years, using the peace talks as misdirection. The leaked footage of Visarian diplomats mocking humans had already gone viral across Earth's networks, stirring public anger. People were ready to fight. When they arrived, the United Nations Security Council was waiting. The emergency session took place in the underground chamber beneath New York, designed to withstand orbital bombardment. "We have verified Ambassador Carter's intelligence," said General Emma Wright, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. "Visarian battle groups are approaching multiple human worlds. Their main fleet will reach our outer colonies within 60 days." EU and Secretary General Richard Okonkwo surveyed the room. "What are our defensive capabilities against their technology?" "Limited," Wright admitted. "Their shield systems are generations ahead of ours. Our conventional weapons will struggle to penetrate them." "Then we need unconventional weapons," said Dr. Sam Warren, Director of Advanced Research. The slim scientist rarely attended security briefings, making his presence significant. "My team has been studying Visarian technology since first contact. We have ideas, but we need time and resources." Carter listened as plans formed. Despite the grim situation, he noticed something remarkable. Not one person suggested surrender. Humanity faced an enemy with superior technology, numbers, and position, backed by the major powers of the galaxy. Yet there was no talk of capitulation. Only determination. Secretary General Okonkwo finally addressed Carter directly. "Ambassador, you've spent more time with the Visarians than anyone. What is your assessment of our situation?" Carter considered his words carefully. "They believe their victory is inevitable because they're measuring us by conventional standards. But humans have never won by following expected paths. The Visarians think they understand us, but they've only seen what we've shown them." He stood to address the council. "They expect us to fight like they would directly with the weapons they know. We won't beat them that way. But if we can surprise them, if we can show them something they've never seen before, ... He paused. "Earth has faced extinction before. From our own creations and from natural disasters. Each time we've survived by changing the rules. It's time to change them again." As the meeting continued late into the night, reports arrived of the first Visarian attacks on distant human outposts. The war had begun, and humanity faced the greatest threat in its history. But in labs and workshops across Earth, minds were already turning to the task of survival. The Visarians thought they were dealing with a simple, predictable species. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months passed since the failed peace talks, and humanity was losing the war badly. 5 human colony worlds had fallen to the Visarian forces. Billions of people were dead or forced to flee their homes. Regular weapons did little against the advanced shields of the enemy ships. Hope was fading as defeat seemed certain. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown to most humans, Dr. Sam Warren wiped sweat from his forehead. He had not slept properly in days. The underground lab was filled with the brightest minds Earth could gather, all working on Project Lightbringer. This was humanity's last, best hope against the Visarians. "The test results are back," said Dr. Olivia Patel, sliding a tablet across the table to Warren. "The energy output is stable at last." Warren studied the numbers and allowed himself a small smile. "We've done it," he said quietly. "Get everyone together. We need to show this to Admiral Rodriguez right away." 30 minutes later, the core team of 12 scientists gathered in the main lab. At the center stood a device that looked surprisingly simple, a metal cylinder about the size of a small fire extinguisher, connected to a power source. "Is that it?" asked Admiral Grace Rodriguez when she entered the room. Her uniform was crisp despite the late hour. As head of Earth Defense Force, she had aged visibly during the months of losing battles against the Visarians. "That's our miracle weapon? Size can be deceiving," Warren said. "What matters is what's inside." For decades, humans explored alternative energy paths that other species ignored. When we met aliens, we discovered they all used graviton-based technology for weapons and shields. We initially thought we were behind them technologically. "We aren't," Rodriguez asked. "We were on a different path entirely," Warren explained. Earth's unique radiation background led our scientists to explore neutrino manipulation. The Visarians. Consider this theoretical at best, impossible at worst. Warren pointed to screens showing data from their experiments. "We've combined what we learned from captured Visarian technology with our own research. The result is this neutrino cascade weapon. It's invisible to their sensors and passes through their shields like they don't exist." Rodriguez looked skeptical. "You're saying we had this technology all along?" "No," Warren shook his head. "We had the theoretical foundation. It took the war to push us to turn theory into practice. We needed to understand their shield frequencies to make it work. That's why we needed the captured Visarian cruiser," the Admiral nodded slowly. "Show me." The team moved to an observation room with a thick glass window. Beyond it was a testing chamber containing a piece of Visarian hull material. With its shield system active, the small cylinder was positioned 10 meters away. "Activate shield diagnostics," Warren instructed. A screen showed the Visarian shield at full strength, an impenetrable barrier according to all known physics. "Initiating neutrino cascade," said Olivia as she pressed a sequence of buttons. There was no flash, no sound, no visible beam, nothing. Seemed to happen for a brief moment. Then, without warning, the Visarian shield flickered and died. A heartbeat later, the hull material behind it developed a perfect circular hole. Edges still glowing from intense heat, the room fell silent. "It worked," Rodriguez whispered, then louder. "It actually worked." "The neutrino stream bypasses their shields completely," Warren explained. "They can't detect or block it because they don't have the sensors to see it coming. To them, it will seem like their systems simply fail without cause." Rodriguez studied the damage with new intensity. "How quickly can we produce more of these?" "With proper resources, we can outfit key ships within 2 weeks. The technology can be scaled up or down. Hand weapons for soldiers, capital ship batteries, even planetary defense systems." "And the Visarians have no defense?" Warren shook his head. "Not unless they completely redesign their entire technological approach, which would take them years. By then, it would be too late." For the first time in months, Admiral Rodriguez smiled. "Dr. Warren, you and your team may have just saved humanity. I'm authorizing maximum priority production under the highest security protocols. No one outside this room can know the details." Over the next few weeks, carefully selected factories across Earth began producing components for the new weapons. The parts were meaningless individually. No single facility knew what they were building. Only at secure military bases were the pieces assembled into working neutrino cascade weapons. Meanwhile, the Visarians continued their advance through human space, unaware of what waited for them. Their victories had made them confident, perhaps overconfident. They no longer bothered to scan for human ships, believing Earth's fleet to be effectively destroyed in a hidden shipyard orbiting Jupiter. Technicians worked day and night to install the new weapons on surviving human vessels. Ships that had retreated from losing battles were quietly refitted, and their crews trained on the new technology. Admiral Rodriguez developed a plan she called Operation Ghostlight. While Earth governments publicly debated surrender terms, the remnants of humanity's fleet prepared for a coordinated strike. The plan was simple but required perfect timing. Let the Visarians believe they had won until the moment all human forces could strike simultaneously on the moon. Commander Paul Mitchell trained soldiers to use the new handheld neutrino weapons. "These don't look impressive," he told his troops, "but they'll cut through Visarian armor like it's paper." No flash, no noise, just results. The training happened in radio silence. The soldiers used hand signals and secure neural links to communicate. Any transmission might alert the Visarians that something was happening back on Earth. Factory worker Joe Miller became an unexpected part of the resistance. His job was to transport special components through Visarian checkpoints. The aliens never suspected that the simple parts in his truck would soon be assembled into weapons that could destroy their ships. "Just act natural," his supervisor had told him. "They think we're beaten. Let them keep thinking that." The occupation grew harsher as the weeks passed. On Mars colony, Visarian troops fired into a crowd of hungry protesters, killing hundreds of civilians. The massacre was broadcast across all human networks, turning fear into rage. In her command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Rodriguez received the final readiness reports. Every surviving human ship was now equipped with neutrino weapons. Resistance cells on occupied worlds were armed and waiting for the signal. Earth's apparent submission had convinced the Visarian command to lower their defensive stance. "They think we're preparing for a surrender ceremony," Rodriguez told her officers. "They have no idea what's really coming." She looked at the tactical display showing Visarian ships positioned above major Earth cities. Their overconfidence had led them to cluster together, presenting perfect targets. 3 days until the formal surrender, her executive officer reminded her. Rodriguez nodded. "Send the coded message to all forces. Lightbringer is go. In 3 days, we show the galaxy what happens when you corner humanity." 8 months into the war, humanity appeared defeated on every front. Visarian warships hung in orbit around Earth like giant metal predators watching their prey. Their sleek hulls gleamed in the sunlight as they positioned themselves above major cities. The Visarian High Command had issued formal surrender terms 2 days ago, demanding Earth become a protectorate with limited self-rule. News channels showed world leaders openly discussing which terms to accept, seemingly resigned to defeat. In his small apartment in Chicago, Joe Miller watched the broadcasts with a hidden smile. The Visarians monitoring Earth media would see only a broken species preparing to submit. They had no idea what was really happening. Joe checked his watch. It was time for his delivery run. He grabbed his ID badge and headed for the factory where he worked. The streets were mostly empty now, with a curfew in effect and Visarian patrols moving through the city. A tall, gray-skinned alien soldier watched him as he passed, 4 eyes tracking his movement. Joe kept his head down, playing the part of a defeated human. The factory looked ordinary from the outside. Inside, workers assembled what appeared to be simple communication equipment approved by Visarian overseers. The aliens regularly inspected the facility, but never understood what they were seeing. The communication components were actually parts for the neutrino cascade weapons. "Truck is loaded," his supervisor whispered as Joe entered. "Northern route today." Checkpoint Charlie. "They're checking cargo more carefully since yesterday, so we added extra dummy cases." Joe nodded and took the digital manifest. His job was simple but crucial: transport the components past Visarian checkpoints to assembly points. The aliens had become careless in their victory, often barely scanning human vehicles. The checkpoint came into view 30 minutes later. 2 Visarian guards stood by the road, their weapons held casually. Joe slowed the truck and presented his papers. "Delivery to Northside Distribution Center," he said, keeping his voice flat and eyes downcast. "Communication parts for authorized repair stations." The taller guard glanced at the manifest and waved a scanner over the truck. The device was looking for energy signatures or weapons, but the neutrino components appeared inert to their technology. The Visarian grunted and waved him through. As Joe drove away, he allowed himself a small smile. Another successful delivery. Soon, very soon, the aliens would learn that humanity was far from defeated. On the far side of the moon, hidden from Earth and Visarian scanners, Commander Paul Mitchell watched his soldiers train with the new weapons. The handheld neutrino projectors looked like simple tubes with a grip, deliberately designed to appear unimpressive. "Remember," Mitchell told the assembled troops, "no visible beam, no sound. You aim, you fire, and the target goes down. The Visarians won't know what hit them until it's too late." The soldiers nodded, their faces determined. Many had lost homes and families in the invasion. All of them had volunteered for the high-risk mission to be among the first wave of the counterattack. Communication blackout remains in effect, Mitchell continued. We move to launch positions in 18 hours. Rest while you can. As the soldiers dispersed, Mitchell's second-in-command approached. Sir, the Mars Resistance sent a message through the quantum link. Another massacre in Olympus City. 300 civilians killed for protesting food shortages. Mitchell's jaw tightened. Added to the briefing. The troops should know what we're fighting for. The Visarian brutality had increased as their victory seemed more certain. On occupied colonies, humans were treated as second-class beings, subject to harsh curfews and food rationing. Any resistance was met with immediate force. The aliens believed they were breaking human spirit. Instead, they were building a reservoir of rage deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. Admiral Rodriguez reviewed the final operation plans. Every surviving human ship had been retrofitted with neutrino weapons. Resistance cells on occupied worlds were armed and in position. The scattered human fleet had gradually repositioned without drawing attention, each vessel appearing to be on ordinary patrol or supply runs. Status report, Rodriguez commanded. Her intelligence officer stepped forward. Visarian fleet deployments remain unchanged, Admiral. They've maintained the same positions for 3 days, confident in their victory. Their shields are active, but at minimal power to conserve energy. They believe our weapons are incapable of penetrating them anyway. And our forces? All units report ready. Strike positions achieved. Quantum communication network is stable. We can coordinate the attack across all theaters simultaneously. Rodriguez nodded and studied the tactical display showing Visarian positions throughout human space. The aliens had made a critical mistake. Believing humans defeated, they had concentrated their forces around major population centers to oversee the surrender. Their ships were clustered together, presenting perfect targets. 2 days until the formal surrender ceremony, her executive officer reminded her. Send the final coded message to all forces, Rodriguez ordered. Operation Ghostlight commences at exactly 0600 Universal Time day after tomorrow. That gives everyone 24 hours for final preparations. On Colony World, New Eden, Resistance fighter Maria Collins received the encrypted message through her quantum communicator. Her small team had been hiding in the forests outside the main Visarian base for weeks, observing patrol patterns and shift changes. It's time, she told her fighters, 20 men and women armed with the smuggled neutrino weapons. Tomorrow morning, we take back our home. None of them had formal military training before the war. Maria had been a school teacher, others had been farmers, office workers, and students. Now they were Earth's first wave of counterattack on New Eden. Their mission was to capture the Visarian command center intact, preventing the aliens from destroying important intelligence when the main assault began. The next day passed with excruciating slowness. Across human space, people went about their activities with feigned submission while secretly preparing for the coordinated strike. The Visarians noticed nothing unusual. Their sensors detected no unusual energy signatures, no suspicious movements of ships, no increase in communication traffic. As far as they could tell, humans were resigned to their fate. On his flagship orbiting Earth, Visarian Fleet Commander Vexcor prepared his dress uniform for the next day's surrender ceremony. The human leaders would sign the Protectorate Agreement, formally placing Earth under Visarian control. It would be the crowning achievement of his career. Status report, he demanded of his bridge crew. All systems nominal, Commander. Human activities remain within expected parameters. Their leaders are preparing for tomorrow's ceremony. No unusual movement detected from their remaining military assets. Vexcor made a sound of satisfaction. The war had been almost disappointingly easy. Humans had advanced technology in some areas, but their weapons and shields were generations behind Visarian standards. Their ships had fallen quickly in the early battles, unable to penetrate Visarian defenses. Maintain standard alert status, he ordered. The humans are beaten, but let's not be careless. As night fell across Earth, the last pieces of the human plan fell into place. In hidden bases, on disguised ships, in underground bunkers, soldiers and civilians prepared for morning. Admiral Rodriguez sent a final personal message to all unit commanders. Remember New Mars, remember our fallen. Tomorrow, we show the galaxy what happens when you corner humanity. At 0559 Universal Time, Rodriguez stood in her command center, watching the seconds tick down on the mission clock. Around her, officers waited tensely at their stations. When the clock hit 0, she spoke a single phrase into her quantum communicator. Lightbringers, go! The first Visarian ship exploded without warning. One moment it hung above Chicago, a massive symbol of alien power, and the next it was engulfed in flames. No visible weapon beam had struck it, no missile had approached. Its shields had simply failed, followed immediately by catastrophic hull breaches. Before the debris began falling toward Earth, 56 more Visarian vessels met the same fate across the solar system. On the bridge of his flagship, Visarian Commander Vexcor stared in disbelief at the tactical display as it showed ship after ship vanishing from the screen. "Report," he shouted at his stunned crew. "What weapons are they using? How are they penetrating our shields?" "Unknown, Commander," his science officer replied, voice shaking. "Sensors detect no energy signatures, no projectiles. Shields are functioning normally until the moment of impact, then they simply fail." Vexcor slammed his fist on the command console. "Impossible. Raise shields to maximum power. Alert all vessels to scatter and take evasive action." It was already too late. Within the first hour of Operation Ghostlight, humanity reclaimed orbital control around Earth and Mars. The Visarian command structure fell into chaos as they faced an invisible enemy using weapons they could not detect or understand. Admiral Rodriguez watched from her command center as the tactical display updated with each victory. "Status report," she ordered, her voice calm despite the historic moment unfolding. "Phase 1 complete, Admiral. Orbital control established around primary targets. Visarian ships are attempting to regroup at rally points in the outer system." "Don't. Give them time," Rodriguez commanded. "Launch Phase 2 immediately." Across the solar system, hidden human ships activated their engines and moved to intercept the retreating Visarian vessels. The alien ships detected the approaching human fleet and prepared for an easy victory, confident in their superior shields and weapons. They did not understand that the balance of power had fundamentally changed. In orbit around Mars, Captain Roy Bennett watched as his small patrol ship approached 3 Visarian cruisers. In the old days, his vessel would have been destroyed in seconds against such odds. Now he felt only determination. "Target locked," his weapons officer reported. "Neutrino cascade ready?" "Fire," Bennett ordered. The invisible beam struck the first Visarian cruiser. Its shields flickered and died, followed by a series of explosions along its hull as critical systems failed. The other 2 cruisers immediately turned their weapons on Bennett's ship, but their energy beams splashed harmlessly against the modified human shields. "Return fire," Bennett commanded. Within minutes, all 3 Visarian cruisers were disabled, their crews abandoning ship in escape pods. Similar scenes played out across human space. The Visarians, unable to defend against weapons they could not detect, found themselves on the receiving end of the same kind of one-sided battle they had inflicted on humans months earlier. On Colony World New Eden, Maria Collins led her resistance fighters toward the main Visarian base under cover of darkness. Each member of her team carried a handheld neutrino projector. When they reached the perimeter, Maria gave the signal to attack. The Visarian guards never saw what hit them. One by one, they fell as invisible beams pierced their personal shields and armor. The resistance fighters moved through the base like ghosts, taking down enemies who could not understand how humans with supposedly primitive weapons were defeating their advanced technology. "Command center ahead," Maria whispered to her team. "Remember, we need their computers intact." The command center doors were sealed and reinforced, but the neutrino weapons made short work of the locks. Inside, 6 Visarian officers reached for their weapons only to freeze when they saw humans already aiming strange devices at them. "Surrender," Maria said simply. "Your shields can't protect you." After a moment of hesitation, the Visarian commander placed his weapon on the floor. The others followed suit. Within 3 hours, the entire base was under human control. Its valuable intelligence databases captured intact as news of the unexpected counterattack spread. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The ambassadors of 37 spacefaring species gathered in their grand chamber, faces showing shock and confusion. "We demand immediate cessation of hostilities," declared the Council President, a member of a species allied with the Visarians. "This escalation by Earth threatens galactic stability." The message was transmitted to Admiral Rodriguez, who received it in her command center with a grim smile. "Send our response," she instructed her communications officer on the Council's main screen. Rodriguez's face appeared. "You stood by while billions of humans died," she said, her voice level but hard. "Your intervention comes only when your allies face defeat. Earth will consider peace when all our worlds are free and those responsible for war crimes face justice." The council chamber erupted in angry shouts, but there was little they could do. The same races that had dismissed humans as primitive now watched in growing alarm as humanity reclaimed its territories with shocking speed. In his laboratory, Dr. Sam Warren worked with his team on the next generation of the neutrino technology. The long-range version had been his primary focus since the counterattack began. "Final calibrations complete," Dr. Olivia Patel reported. "The targeting system can now reach Visarian homeworld from our current position." Warren nodded, his face serious. "This isn't about revenge. This is about showing them we could strike their civilian centers if we wanted to, but choose not to. Humanity is better than that." The demonstration came 3 days later. The neutrino beam, fired from Earth orbit, traveled through space at near light speed. It bypassed the Visarian homeworld's orbital defenses as if they weren't there, precisely, targeting and disabling their main military command center without harming the surrounding civilian structures. A calculated show of restraint and power, the message to the Visarian Emperor was simple: "We can reach you anywhere. We choose mercy over vengeance. Your fleet cannot protect you, but our restraint might. Peace is your only option." Within 3 weeks, humanity reclaimed all its lost territories. Visarian forces retreated in disarray, their once mighty armada reduced to scattered survivors. Other galactic powers, previously aligned with the Visarians, scrambled to establish diplomatic channels with Earth. Ambassador Alan Carter, who had witnessed the failed peace talks that started the war, now found himself in a very different position. Alien diplomats who had once sneered at humans now approached with careful respect, even fear. "The Visarian Emperor requests unconditional peace talks," a nervous alien messenger informed Carter. "On Earth's terms at a location of your choosing." Carter thought of all the human lives lost because of alien arrogance. "Tell the Emperor we accept. The talks will be held on Luna Base, where we will discuss not just peace between our species, but a new framework for galactic relations." As the messenger departed, Carter gazed out at the stars. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, seeing only a young species with uneven technological development. They had failed to understand that humans, when pushed to the edge of extinction, would fight back with unexpected innovation and determination. The next day, Admiral Rodriguez met with Earth's leadership to discuss the path forward. "The Visarians and their allies now fear us," she said. "But fear is not the foundation we want for lasting peace." Secretary General Okonkwo nodded in agreement. "We didn't fight this war to become conquerors. We fought to survive, to protect our right to exist as equals in the galaxy. Now we have the opportunity to build something better than what came before." As plans formed for the upcoming peace conference, humanity prepared to show the galaxy that they were not only capable of winning a war, but also of crafting a peace that could benefit all species. 1 year after humanity's successful counteroffensive, the galaxy looked very different. The Grand Hall of Luna Base was filled with representatives from 37 spacefaring civilizations for the signing of the Lunar Accords. The room had been specially designed for the historic occasion, with Earth visible through the massive dome window overhead, a deliberate reminder of what the gathered species had nearly destroyed. Ambassador Alan Carter stood at the center podium, looking out at the assembled aliens. Many species that had once dismissed humans as primitive now sat with careful attention, some with barely disguised fear. The Visarian delegation, once arrogant and dismissive, now occupied seats near the back, their posture humble. "We never wanted war," Carter began, his voice carrying through the silent hall. "We still don't, but we will never again be considered primitive or weak." The terms of the peace agreement were displayed on screens around the room. They included reparations for damaged human colonies and formal recognition of Earth's territorial claims. More significantly, the treaty established new protocols for interspecies conflict resolution with actual enforcement mechanisms. This document represents more than just peace between humans and Visarians, Carter continued. It offers a new foundation for galactic relations, one based on mutual respect rather than technological hierarchy. One by one, the representatives approached to add their signatures or biological equivalents to the accord. The Visarian Emperor, once the most powerful ruler in the sector, was among the last to sign. As he passed Carter, he paused. "Your species surprised us," the Emperor said quietly. "We believed technological age determined worth." "We were wrong." Carter nodded but offered no comfort. The Emperor's realization had come at the cost of billions of human lives. Understanding would have to be enough. Forgiveness would take generations after. The ceremony, Dr. Sam Warren met with delegates from friendly species in a more private setting. As the new head of the Interstellar Technology Exchange, Warren had the delicate task of deciding which human advancements to share with allies. "The neutrino cascade technology remains classified," he explained to the group of scientists. "But we're willing to share advancements in medicine, agriculture, and clean energy production." A Tellurian scientist, insectoid and brilliant, tilted her head curiously. "You humans explored scientific paths others dismissed as impractical. What made you pursue such different approaches?" Warren smiled. "Necessity and curiosity. Earth's environment shaped our thinking differently. When conventional paths were blocked, we looked for alternatives. Being isolated from galactic knowledge forced us to find our own solutions. Across reclaimed human colonies, reconstruction had begun. On New Eden, the once devastated main city was slowly being rebuilt. In the central square, workers were completing a memorial garden to honor those lost in the war. Stone monuments listed the names of the fallen, with spaces left open for names still being collected. Maria Collins, the former resistance fighter, now served as the elected governor of New Eden. She walked through the construction site, reviewing plans for the colony's new defensive systems. "The shield generators will be operational next month," her chief engineer explained. "Combined with the early warning network, we'll have at least 2 hours' notice of any approaching ships." Maria nodded with satisfaction. "And our own defenses? 4 neutrino cascade emplacements, covering all approach vectors? Nothing will catch us unprepared again." Throughout human space, similar preparations were underway. The hard lesson of the war had not been forgotten. Peace was welcome, but readiness was non-negotiable. On Earth, Admiral Rodriguez stood before the newly formed Guardian Fleet, 50 ships of various sizes, all equipped with humanity's most advanced technology, were prepared for their first mission. "Your task is not conquest," Rodriguez told the assembled captains. "The Guardian Fleet exists to protect vulnerable species from aggression. We remember what it meant to stand alone against a more powerful enemy. No peaceful species should face that situation again." Surprisingly, several former enemies had requested human protection against remnant Visarian extremists. The galaxy's power structure had fundamentally changed, with Earth now leading a coalition of previously marginalized species. In Chicago, Joe Miller returned to a more normal life. The factory where he had once smuggled weapon components now openly manufactured communication equipment. On weekends, he volunteered at a community center helping refugees from outer colonies adjust to life on Earth. It gets easier, he told. A family recently arrived from a devastated world. We're rebuilding everywhere. In a year or two, you'll be able to return home if you want. The family's young daughter looked up at him with serious eyes. Are the bad aliens coming back? Joe knelt to meet her gaze. No, they learned that humans are stronger than they look, and we have many new friends in the galaxy now. On the diplomatic front, Ambassador Carter oversaw the establishment of new human embassies on worlds that had previously denied Earth representation. The Galactic Council, once dominated by old powers, had been reformed with more balanced representation for younger, spacefaring species. During a private conversation with Carter, a Tellurian diplomat made a striking admission. We always saw humans as impulsive, emotional, and technologically immature. We never understood that these traits made you uniquely dangerous. You explored scientific paths others dismissed. You turned desperation into innovation. The galaxy. We'll never underestimate humanity again. Perhaps the most hopeful sign came from the new cultural exchange programs. On a space station orbiting neutral territory, a Visarian child and a human child sat together, working on an art project. Neither remembered the war personally, but both were being raised to understand its costs and the importance of preventing. Another, my grandfather says humans and Visarians were enemies, the alien child said as they painted. But you don't seem like an enemy. My mom says people can change, the human child replied, sharing her paints. Maybe our grandparents were enemies, but we don't have to be. A teacher watching nearby smiled at the simple wisdom. Perhaps the next generation would find a better path forward than war. As humanity expanded once more into the galaxy, they carried both hope and caution. In a classified facility beneath the Atlantic Ocean, Earth's government quietly authorized funding for Project Starfall, a new initiative developing even more advanced defensive technologies. Peace had been achieved, but the hard lesson remained. In a dangerous galaxy, readiness was non-negotiable. Dr. Warren, reviewing the Project Starfall proposals late one night, paused to look at a photograph on his desk. It showed Earth from space, a fragile blue marble against the darkness, everything humanity had fought to protect. We came so close to losing it all, he murmured to himself. Never again. The war had changed humanity's place in the galactic order. Species that had once looked down on humans now approached with respect, even fear. But the true victory wasn't domination, it was the right to exist as equals, to determine their own future among the stars. Ambassador Carter, watching a new class of diplomatic cadets prepare for assignments across the galaxy, felt a sense of cautious optimism. Remember, he told them during their final briefing, our goal isn't to rule the galaxy, but to ensure humanity has its rightful place in it. We proved we could win a war when necessary. Now we need to prove we can build a lasting peace. As the sun set over a healing Earth, humans looked to the stars with new confidence. They had faced extinction and survived. Whatever challenges the universe might bring next, humanity would face them together, no longer naive, but still holding on to hope for a better future.